So, welcome to the Product Quest podcast. Thank you for joining us on our quest to better understand innovation and product strategy. My name is Jan Wermuth, and joining me as always, my co hosts Scott Burson and Jonathan Edwards. Today, we will dive deep into the challenges of becoming and being a product manager with Dr. Bart Yavorski. Bart is a senior product manager at Stepstone. He has worked, and I should stretch this, as a senior product manager at Microsoft. And he is, I've just seen this today, a LinkedIn top product management voice. So there is a little button there that's very nice. So through his online courses on drbart.com, he has trained over 18,000 people, is it now, I think, in various aspects of product management, from how to land a PM job to running design sprints and much more. So this is going to be super exciting. Bart, welcome to the Product Quest podcast.
Great, and thank you for having me. It's drbartpm.com. Unless you want to have
Sorry.
I think drbart.com is some medical professional, as I recall.
That was already, URL was already taken.
Mhm.
It's so it's Dr. Bart, drbartpm.com.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. We'll put it into the description. So can we just jump in at what's greatest about being a product manager? I mean, if one looks at your website or your LinkedIn profile, we can clearly see there's a lot of enthusiasm there for being a product manager. But what is this about? Why is it so great for you?
Well, it's the ability to touch so many lives without being a politic. It's a politician. Politician. Politic is more of a Polish word. That's maybe a joke approach to say, but really, when you look at those hundred thousands, millions of people that maybe sometimes appear like numbers in your reporting suite, but those are people that have a real problem that you are solving. You wouldn't be able to do it on such a scale without being a product manager that manages specific product. You can help your neighbor with his or her plumbing. You can help your family, but can you connect millions of people together via a call unless you are a product manager at Skype? No, you can't. And having
Mm,
this realization that you can shape other people's lives is tremendous. Speaking of
yeah.
families, I really loved being at Skype when I remember the story of my uh, Chinese friend who used Skype a lot with her parents so that the grandkids can stay connected. And it was very easy because even when the granddaughter was like 3, 4, she was able to grab the phone without being able to read anything. Just
Mm,
push the Skype icon, and there was grandma, there was grandpa. And
yeah.
even at Stepstone, which I really love to work for the very reason that, at least in the area of business I'm working for, it's all about connecting candidates to the right job. There's nothing nefarious, nothing retail about it. It's though for us, it's like, yes, we have to get those people applying. People, our clients are counting on it. That's the business part, but the mission part, the thing that
Mm,
keeps me up and energized at work is, well, the fact that people who don't have a job suddenly have a job. And being one of the unlucky hundreds of thousands that were affected by the tech layoffs earlier this year, I know firsthand how difficult a time it is to
yeah.
look for a job, especially when it's not like, oh, I have had it. I'm like very in demand in the market. I'll just wait who comes and takes me. That was the case 3, 4 years ago. Now
Yeah.
we are in a quite different reality, though it's getting better looking by the number of positions available on the market for different positions.
Yeah. I mean, you must have firsthand insight basically in the development of that.
Yeah, yeah. This
But yeah,
this
it's
is
true.
this is where I have to like hold my horses with the numbers, though they are here. They are not for me to share.
Okay. Well, I really love this how you framed this. So it's really, you've been talking about being a product manager is this changing and touching people's life, but on a scale that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And I think I really like this mission. I mean, you seem to be very mission driven about this, like the ability to change or positively affect people's life.
Well, that's how the best way. This is the best way to get motivated by this job because it you said there's a lot of good stuff and optimism on my profile, but when you look through the job through the post,
Yeah.
there's also a lot of challenges, a lot of negativity, and a lot of typical product management hurdles that you have to go through in order to get anything released. Like just 2 or 3 days ago, I was reflecting on my LinkedIn profile with a picture of an iceberg on how the simplest update
Yeah.
needs like a 3 or 4 months head time to get done because you need to have the design, you need to show it to so many people, you need to run through every copy, every picture. There's so much work involved, and I was looking at it and I was like, when did my agile become so waterfallish? Like I didn't even notice. Like only when I started reflecting on the level
Yeah.
of prep needed to provide quality work and not something put together in 2 weeks, then it's like, oh we.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe can we dwell a little bit on this? I would really love to. I mean, not just for the sake of being negative, but I mean, I think you rightly mentioned that there are quite a lot of challenges that you have to deal with as a product manager. So maybe if somebody would be new to product management, what were some surprising or challenges you that didn't think at first that you would have as a product manager?
I think that the biggest like obstacle you don't expect is the people you'll be working with. You may be lucky with a lot of supportive developers, managers, higher management who will just push you to be better and to create better stuff.
Mm.
But they might as well be your greatest obstacles where you want to do something, where you feel motivated when you know with your research, your data, and your gut feeling that the thing that's on top of your backlog is the thing that will make a difference.
Yeah.
But if your developers make it hard for you and don't support your mission and you didn't lay the groundwork to have them as supporters, or your management suddenly shifts gears and what was previously aligned with the product, vision's mission, is no longer even like close to what's expected of you. So it's it's like when I look at my coursework at an influencer work, where I'm product manager of my own product, the only thing that I
Mm.
need to manage is myself, my energy levels, and prioritize the
Yeah.
value I bring to myself and my followers versus how much time do I have to commit. And that's like the
Yeah.
easiest way to do it. But when you add any complexity, and that's the people I mentioned, that's the technology that might seem straightforward, but when you start dig into it, then
Yeah.
single button change suddenly becomes 3 hours of work. Fun fact, changing
That's the
call button,
iceberg behind.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, changing uh, the control buttons on Skype from like a solid color to a gradient literally took 3 months of work for a single developer. And like you look at it and like, where did we lose our common sense in it? How is this so difficult? And struggling between knowing what has to be done and coping with all the barriers that are there to discourage you, to say the least,
Yeah.
can have a toll on you, even
Yeah.
though you feel and you then later see in the numbers that it was worth the effort.
Yeah. Yeah. That's then ideally the gratification at the end. But I think there's a lot of discipline that goes into like, or like you need to a lot of have a like a marathon attitude to actually survive somehow as a PM.
Mhm.
But so I have a like so this is a back of mind theory, but and I want to test this with you. But I feel like somehow maybe the term product manager can be a couple of times a little bit misleading. I feel like product managers manage a lot of things. Yes, the product, but also as you mentioned, it's a lot of people management as well. It's a lot of you said it nicely, like you have to lay a lot of groundwork before you can get anything going. Can you maybe expand a little bit into this and how like that affects your day-to-day work?
Well, I learned very quickly that, at least for the development team, the trust is very important. And it will depend from team to team. I've worked with people who were early in their careers, and uh, the product manager was all something of a father figure, and there were the teenagers that had to rebel. I
Yeah.
had been in a position where I had the pleasure to work with true professionals who just took anything I wanted them to do and they would figure it out for me with very little input other than replying to basic questions. And I had a few people, teams in between that spectrum. But every time it's about building that confidence into your team that they know that whatever you said, there's data to support it, that you as the PM spend a lot of time researching the topic and making sure that they are not wasting time, that the Jira task or PRD is well written, that they can just take it and get on with it without conversation. I mean, there's always a little conversation needed, but ideally, the state of like the document written should be close to where developers can just work on it. In fact, I
Yeah.
think that my Skype team had a joke about it that I tend to have to do this thing where if I have an idea and I need to put it into backlog just to write it later, I just put the title and save it, and sometimes I forget about it. And unfortunately, on one occasion, like this solo title ticket made it to refinement, and
It
it
was
does
actually
not.
the
And there was not no, no, there was nothing there, and like and everyone is looking, but that's just title, and they say, guys, come on, it's Bart. If you need the description to understand that what to do, not solo based on
yeah.
on title, that means the title is wrong, right? You just need the title. That's all.
That would be nice. Like just having the description, just titles, and then developers will know what to do. Like that.
But again, it's not only developers.
Yeah.
It's that
Yeah.
data effort really, because you might be in conflict with different types of stakeholders that have different visions of what you should do in your work. Sometimes there will be people who just have some advice or request. Sometimes it will be people with real power that will come to you and say that they
Yeah.
urgently need anything. And when it comes to battling different opinions, you can't really win with people with higher power unless you have data, unless you have proof to show to these people that whatever they came to you with makes
Yeah.
very little sense in comparison to what you already thought about. Of course, it will not always work. There will be people with strong characters that will defy even data, but
Yeah.
I always explain to myself that it's not about being right or wrong. If I want to do my own stuff, I have to be a CEO and have my own company, which I do after hours. But at the end of the day, I'm just being in a luxury position where I'm able to spend someone else's money to hopefully create a better product, earn my salary, and get someone a bit more rich. So if someone would prefer to go against my professional experience and invest one's money somewhere else, who am I to defy it? I can only do the
Mm.
due diligence and show my best recommendation at the end of the day, right? Sometimes it's difficult and you have to have a very well built mindset to have this detachment between your content of your backlog and what's happening around it. Especially if that stakeholder comes with an obviously bad idea and then you have to sell it to your development team as your own. At least this is my strategy because I always thought, and I seen it happen, that if you paint the management as like people not as competent as they should be in their positions, then you create a boogeyman, and nothing that
Yeah.
comes from there will be treated with respect. And sometimes those disrespectful requests have good merit, and maybe you need to put a little bit more trust in your manager that he or she is not in a better position that you are, especially in the biggest of orgs. And this is something you can expect when working in Google, Meta, Microsoft. The, the big corporate game is out there, and you just need to accept that maybe you're not a pawn, but nothing more than a bishop, really, on a holy mission of product management.
Yeah, that's nice. Jonathan, you're
I had a question relating to data. You talked about proving your assertions with data. Could you maybe run us through what that looks like? What does that mean to do that?
I would split that into two sections, really. The opportunity, where you are able to determine how many users of clients are facing the problem that you want to solve. So there's this pool of opportunity where you can potentially provide value, whatever that means for your product. And the other part would be to assess the end impact. That can be done by seeing how similar solutions worked with your competitors or in different parts of your product. Sometimes it's pretty simple when you have like an iOS and Android apps, and one platform is doing one experiment, knows the results, and the other can then duplicate the solution on their platform, knowing very firmly what the impact will be. But honestly, in 40-50% of cases, it will be just a pure guesstimation, finger in the wind, and you're trying your best because you have a certain focus, you have a certain area of improvement to provide, and you just gamble that money given to find a solution. The situation where you have all the data and the numbers needed to have perfectly number-driven prioritization of your backlog are few and far between. So unfortunately, that's not always super scientific. But at the same time, there's not a framework that's scientific like Moscow or any other that tries to quantify different parameters of prioritization and still remains reliable and makes it easy to obtain every numbers. It's just a matter of trying to guess it. And for that, I always appreciated the value effort chart as the prioritization method, where you take different solutions, different tasks that you want to bring. You can mix it up with bugs or technical improvements. And then you assess the value and the effort needed to deliver specific items against one another. So it's not numerical, but it's relative, which paints a nice picture of what should be done next just by looking for your most value, least effort project that also comes with the lowest amount of risk that it won't work the way you intended it to. So that's like the chart then becomes 3D, so usually the risk is not there, but it's something to also consider. And unfortunately, any new bet, any new feature, any new update is always, in the end, unknown. I can see that very often when I do postings on LinkedIn. My main strategy usually evolves around finding a image or a format that worked for some other creator and brought thousands of likes or any other like quality metric. And sometimes I'm able to replicate the success by writing something similar or creating similar image or using the same image with more product management oriented content. And sometimes it simply the success is not replicable. Like with a post I did yesterday on superpowers and the shadows, which the original, I think it was Peter Young who posted the one that I was inspired by. got 5,000 likes, and my re-edition, which for all terms and purposes would have caught the same type of audience, same attention, and by not plagiarizing but like keeping the inspiration and showing the original source, didn't work out the same way. So it's always a big product casino, and you need to play until you win.
Big product casino. I like that. It was like you can place your bets, but who knows where the ball is gonna fall, really. Like, okay. Scott, did you wanna
Yeah, I have sort of a similar question. I hope it's not too similar, but this is what's in my mind. As a product manager, especially with software products, you get lots of suggestions, you get lots of emails, add this feature, add that feature, you know. So I basically serve that role as a product manager role myself for some software that we have. And often my immediate reaction is just like, no, I think of every reason not to do it. But what's your process? So an idea comes in, somebody suggests it. It could come from any stakeholder, it could come from a user. How do you evaluate that? What happens next?
Well, it is very similar because it starts with obviously giving yourself some time to evaluate the idea. And I understand the urge of saying, no, that doesn't
Yeah.
make sense, especially that you live in a world that's already sort of sorted. You have ideas what you want to do, you want to go through with it. And every distraction like this is pretty irritating, isn't it? You just want
Yes,
to do your stuff and not hear thousands of heads that are
exactly.
that appear smarter than you and thinking that they know better. And let's play around with that product casino reference because uh, it's really another vector of information that you get with any idea. You can go with like this product route to evaluate whether it's um, compatible with the mission, vision of the product, the current strategy, whether we have some data to indicate its potential success or not, or we can just have a big magnetic drawing board next to one another, next to you, and just put another idea and try to prioritize this versus anything else you have in the backlog. And by all means, I wouldn't say to dismiss any idea outright. Try to keep optimistic, keep open. Don't be afraid to say no. Just be in a mindset where you know that you don't know nothing and you are that gambler that needs the best cards possible. You don't know what the house has, what the other players have. You don't know how the market will react until you well play. Though, unlike poker or any other gambling game, you do have the advantage of a game where you don't deliver the exact thing that you want to deliver, but something small, close enough, the so-called MVP, minimum viable product, maybe a POC, proof of concept. Wow, it's getting late and I'm losing my abbreviations. Anyway, you can look for a cheap way to see if the direction you're taking is the right one. And perhaps your stakeholder idea that feels risky, that doesn't feel right in terms of what you're doing, of stuff that you worked on for weeks, months, that you feel like should go forward. Maybe there is an easy way to see if this is a good idea without having data. Maybe put a fake button on the product to see if it garners attention, or send a questionnaire to the users whether they are interested in it, or take an opportunity of a product discovery process where you talk to your users on a regular basis and you try to get a wind of some of the ideas that came along and are like in this verification phase. So there's a lot of work to be done to play around with the right prioritization. And if you have time, you can make the time and you can cancel enough meetings to put your heart fully in the prioritization product management game, the product casino can be very entertaining and bring you ideas and directions you would have never thought of on your own.
I
I
really
love
like
this idea of the product casino and the gambling metaphor. Why? Because it illustrates that the risk never goes to zero. Like there's still always, you might have you might have various levels of confidence, but you at some point every decision still has a risk with it. Just like a gambler, there's no guarantee. A gambler's not going to win all the time. They hopefully win most of the time, but there's
Snake eyes will
risk. The
eventually
risk
appear.
never goes away. And it's not this idea of evaluating the feature. It's often not that the thought, at least from my perspective, it's not that, well, this feature will be terrible and everybody will hate it. It's like, well, each feature adds some degree of complexity, something else that can fail, something else that might interfere with. There's some cost to it. And so to me, that's the thing that's hard to evaluate. Is it worth this? It's not like you add the feature, then all the users leave, but in any one decision probably doesn't kill the thing. But if you're too liberal about taking everything, you just create this mess. You create this disaster over time.
Yeah, and that is actually a big risk with being a product manager, that you can have the best solution that you spend months working on, and then a disastrous launch can kill the whole project that otherwise would have been super successful. Or you can make poor copy choices that will confuse the users, and the work will never work the way it was intended to. I always have the picture of the first iPhone in front of me when I talk about it, because iPhone, other than the glass screen, wasn't innovation at all. It was technology that was already there on the market in various shapes or form, and even Apple, in the form of Apple Newton, had something of a smartphone already on the market at some point of time. But it took all the technology that was needed, pushed to almost like, I don't want to say perfection, because I never liked iPhones to begin with, and I hardly ever had one, but it was a situation where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. And unless you can pull off a greater than the sum of its parts moment on your product, you run the risk of the smallest details derailing your big efforts. And that's very often nicely visible in the world of gaming, where a bad monetization scheme or a poor server performance on launch will kill otherwise enjoyable game. So
Yeah.
it's not a product manager position for the faint of heart.
Your story, it's funny. I had this as you were describing it before you mentioned the iPhone. The iPhone is also the product that came to mind, but let me explain why. It's like if you go back to like the generation 3, I mean, it's hard to remember. Prior to having the lightning connection, there was this connection that was about 3 centimeters wide, maybe not quite that wide, 2.5 centimeters wide. And I remember when Apple went from that one that was 2.5 centimeters wide to lightning. As a user, I hated it. Why? Because I had all these chargers and I had all these. So they literally did something that I hated. And if you would have given me, if I would have filled out a form and I said, this is terrible. Now I can't use all my charging cords and blah, blah. But clearly so the product manager had to take a bit of a risk at, hey, here's something our users are not going to like. It's not going to provide immediate benefit, but in the long run, it's smaller. I don't know. I presume there's some data exchange, there's some efficiency, there's some functional benefit, I presume. But I think that's interesting in that you'd say the product manager is not for the faint of heart. In that case, some product manager had to make a decision that was not going to be popular, yet in the long run they could see the vision where it would be ultimately better. And then they would just sort of have to take the arrows They placed the bet, and you just have to wait for enough. You sort of have to take those arrows and shots while it plays out before the users come around to, oh yeah, I do see it's better now, if that makes sense.
Well, you're talking about changing the lightning port from the older version to the smaller version, but
Yes.
I immediately remember when they removed the jack port from
Yes,
iPhone. It
that
was like,
Oh
also.
yeah,
Yes,
whoa, why are they doing it?
exactly.
Or
yeah.
I'm still
And
having.
now nobody uses it anymore. So
Mhm.
yeah,
I'm
that's
I'm not a Mac user. I had a Mac for 6 months, and every time I had to use it, I felt like entering a competition of throwing laptops into the garden. Uh,
oh,
and
you have to say that. Yeah.
no, but it's not that it's bad computer. It's just it's different than a PC. And if you used your PC since MS-DOS, then like every little thing irritates you because it's different.
Yes.
But what I was leading to is that the philosophy of nice design led to like a single USB-C port on a Mac, and then you see all those like colleagues that enjoy Macs and also have to enjoy all the peripherals in order to, I don't know, connect a projector or anything. Like it's like a beautiful laptop with a spider connected to it.
Um, Regarding the choice of these different features, do you have you heard and tried maybe this shape up this technique from the guys at Basecamp? They wrote a book. So Ryan Singer, they wrote a book where they they describe a bit what you were saying before, talking about a casino, that you'll break down some some feature, whatever kind of request you get, you break it down, and then um, basically the team will bet, if I remember correctly, on the what they would like to work on, what they feel is the most important. And there's a whole technique. Is this something you've applied yourself or no?
No, I really like the value of a chart for the reason it's simple. It doesn't require you to find any numbers because more often than not those numbers will be BS anyway, and it's pretty transparent to everyone in the room who's playing that game, and it gives a lot of visible and easy to follow discussion. So whenever I need to do it in a communal way, I find it that it's simply the easiest, and I never looked for anything better. But thank you for the recommendation. I'll definitely check it out, especially that Basecamp is pretty close to my heart, knowing that that's like what 12 guys who made Basecamp, and they managed to run a very successful SaaS business for all that time with very few people. And at the same time, using Basecamp in my first startup, I always found it very useful and like mature software. So this is a big success story and something that can, by evidence, show you that perhaps they are on to something, and we don't need companies of thousands in order to run a simple website.
Yeah, I think they're a good proof that, I mean, something they did very, very,
Mhm.
very right. But I want to get into a little bit. I mean, it sounds like there is like what's a good recipe to bake a PM, basically, right? So it sounds like a little bit. You need a little bit of luck. There is never, or you never have the certainty, but you need a lot of other things as well. You need kind of people management skills. You probably need something like technical knowledge. What are the ingredients that make up a good PM?
I would start with communication. If people can
Hmm.
understand you, they can follow your narrative, and you know whom and when to talk to and how to talk to them, that makes it so much easier because you suddenly get fans of you who want to help you out, that they understand your position, they see the opportunity. And because much of product management is people management in different shapes and forms,
Hmm.
it's the key skill really to have, and it's a skill that's naturally evolving as you go along. And I particularly had a lot of fun when I came back to Stepstone after a 3-year break, and I was given my old account back so I could see my old emails.
Ooh.
Jesus Christ. When I saw my last like goodbye email, oh, it was like I thought a kindergarten wrote it. Like the choice of words, the weird grammar. I mean, back then I was like, oh, that's the pinnacle of my writing. It's my farewell email. I need to like do my best.
Yeah.
Maybe I did my best back then, but oh boy, it didn't stand the what's the phrase? Um, it, it didn't age well.
Yeah.
So
But I think if you're not ashamed of stuff that you've written a couple of years ago, you did something wrong. Like there, you stopped developing. I think like there is an issue. I mean, if that's kind of, if you look back something you wrote 5 years ago, and I think there's no way I could have said it better. That's a bad sign, I think.
5 months ago, 5 years ago,
Yeah, 5 years, who's talking about 5 years?
between you and me, and that's like top secret. Please don't tell anyone.
Never tell anybody.
Yeah, some of my posts are being reposted on LinkedIn like every 3-4 months, and sometimes when I go back to a successful post and before I post it, I do like a proofreading again. It's like, oh my God, what were I thinking? And it's like, and it's just because like natural evolution, daily writing, and like playing that let's get better communicating game, you see how much worse one has been previously.
Yeah.
So the communication was one thing. The leadership thing is another connected to it. And I think that if you are able to inspire your developers, to tell them your perspective and motivate those people in spite of you not being the real manager, like not the person who decides their promotions, bonuses, then it's also gets much easier. Being comfortable with data is very important. So you know where to look for data, how to interpret it, how to ask yourself the right questions before looking at the numbers. Sometimes it's about simple questions and answers and not digging into it too deep because it's a rabbit hole. Sometimes it's about getting the smallest detail right so you don't arrive at the wrong conclusions.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's data. I won't say tech because I think it's a common misconception.
That would have been my question, of course, like the follow, like what kind of development stuff, blah, blah, blah. But okay, why not then?
Because you are not about developing technology really as a product manager. You're about developing solutions. And you don't really need to be focused on how things are done. It's about focusing on how things look in the end and whether they work as intended or they need additional work. Of course, it's not about like one day you are in the field and putting grain on the earth, and the another day you are a technological leader. You still need to invest time in understanding the language, understanding the principles, but only for the communication's sake, really, to know how your devs work and what are their struggles so you can communicate those struggles further along if you need to. But you shouldn't be like an architect. You shouldn't need to understand how to code well or even how to be a good designer. I'm particularly struggling with design very often when I do something for myself. But as a product manager, you're basically the brains of the whole operation in terms of getting as much vectors and inputs to your brain or your backlog or other system as possible. And then based on all that you received, come up with the best possible end game plan for it. And other project management plan, as in how to split a task to be delivered to production sprint by sprint, more like how to split a solution into iteration that will progressively reinforce the fact that you are investing in the right thing and getting the results that you are looking for.
Yeah.
I'd like just to echo that point because that's one of the more, you get into these LinkedIn arguments sometimes this issue you just brought up, or Jan just brought up and you answered, do you have to be technical? Do you have to be a developer to be a product manager? I have the same position you do, that no, you don't have to be one. You don't have to have that super in-depth knowledge, but there are definite, but that's one of the points that people really take issue with what I've said. Here's an observation I've made. Well, people who say no, you do have to be a developer, they're I'd say always people who they themselves were developers and became product managers, and therefore they're like, everybody has to take the same path I do. But I think for those people, their temptation is to keep doing development. Like, they have to keep out of it. Another thing I see is people that are in sales or marketing, they become product managers, and then they have their temptation is to, now they want to go on sales calls. Now they want to just stay in the sales role all the time. And in each, it's like, I think there are lots of valid paths to product management. And I think the fallacy some make is whatever individual path they happen to have, they say everybody has to have it. But I love what you framed up when Jan asked what were the key skills. You began with communication,
Yeah.
leadership, being comfortable with data, and being analytical, if I can sort of interpret what you said.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree. Those are far more important than any in-depth technical skills you might have. I just wanted to sort of reiterate it because I see that point debated a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, on my YouTube channel, there's like a lot of videos on how to get from one position to product manager. And
Yeah.
like the common theme there is like strip yourself of your old position because it will hinder you. I came from like project management background where I
Yep.
evolved into like a junior PM project manager in a startup where there were few people and you had to be really strict and like make sure that everything was done right and check every little detail. And when I moved on to a more mature company like Stepstone, I still was like micromanaging and checking everything
Right.
until I had the right agile coach that basically held me to my t-shirt and held me far from the team so I can isolate myself, see that things will happen without me breathing over the necks, and like show me that I'm failing at thinking about strategy, thinking about long-term product development, which I arguably started those skills from zero back then, and it took me a few long years to be comfortable with both firefighting and like planting forests, to keep the analogy.
I really like this. I mean, I think it's a constant battle also I mean, I'm far from having experience as a PM, but I kind of see them from the outside, and I think there's this tendency to go back where you're comfortable, right? And that's probably where you've coming from. So what you've known in the past, and so that's why I love how you emphasize it's like one step to get into the PM world is you have to strip yourself exactly of that, because otherwise you will always have that tendency probably to fall back on what you know, and it's probably not going to work, or not all the time at least.
And it's even worse if you are like a senior designer that evolves to a PM, and then he or she has this person's own designers who are probably more junior, and then it's like this frustration. Oh, I could have done a better design. This is so bad, and you have to hold your own T-shirt and just point this person to like a better solution, so your mentee can evolve, and you have time to do your new job and not do the old job as well at the same time. Oh, it's pretty difficult to keep professional.
So I think landing a PM job is a big topic. Also one that you speak about and that you have courses on, and there's a lot on your YouTube channel as well that you can dive in. So I mean, but I want, like, why is it so hard? Why is that so difficult? It seems like PM is one of those kind of hot jobs to have. UX is maybe one, but so why is it so difficult to land one? What does it take, and where you can help?
Well, this is a classical paradox of looking for a 20-year-old secretary with 30 years of experience. That you really that employers look for people with product experience already, and this is understandable. As I said, we are really like in very like basic foundational level of our work, taking someone's money to transform it via coding into more money. So you don't want to invest in someone who doesn't yet know what he or she is doing, right? You want a person who already has that experience. So it's very rare that someone is so amazed with a person that comes to an interview without proper experience that lands the job. So how to compensate? I would say that there are two tracks to do that: the long way and the unicorn way. The long way is obviously doing those development, design, QA jobs, something around the agile team, around the product owner, product manager, where you have the exposition, where you can help this person, where you can volunteer to replace the PM or PO when they go for holidays. And there is just a day where you go to HR or your manager and say that this is like the thing that you would like to do long term. How do we make it happen? And with the right track record, this will eventually happen if the company has openings for PM and they can see that you've done the work. If not, then it's time to find another company that will be willing to eventually give you the opportunity if that's the goal. The unicorn track is where you are able to amaze the person on the interview by what you've done to become a product manager. That obviously is reading books, articles, following people like myself, taking courses. But I believe that the most important thing is to demonstrate that you do have the experience without landing the role. You can do that by either utilizing product management principles in a role you're currently occupying and being able to frame it as such using the right language on the resume, or just take and create your own product. You don't need to be a coder. You can simply do, say, create a social media account and give yourself a goal of having, I don't know, 10,000, 2,000 followers. Same for a YouTube video blog, and then apply the principles of learning and adjusting, trying different things until you reach the goal. Fundamentally, the work of a PM that you need to demonstrate as your experience is setting a goal, having a hypothesis to reach it, and then trying and learning until you reach the goal, and then being able to talk about the journey and how it panned out. On my YouTube channel, there's a story of an influencer on a Chinese social platform who started her work based on my calls and her efforts on how to apply those PM principles on her social media channel, and she managed to get that job as a PM. Now she's already mid PM. I believe no longer a junior, though it's already been 3 years, so it's the right time. And the unicorn track also has like a less unicorn track, so to say, when you apply for internships or like pretty junior roles where you probably are not expected to already have significant experience, but they usually want people with experience anyway. But the bar is lower there, and especially if you are able to show that you're living, breathing product management and you have some your successes on your own, perfect. What doesn't work and what I think is common lie in the industry are the certificates or MBAs. Maybe in India, if you have an MBA in product management specifically, where they have the MBA tracks like that, perhaps someone will be willing to bat an eye and invite you to an interview. But say product school, that certificate, though they claim otherwise, is worthless in terms of getting you the first call on a resume. I mean, just
Mm.
any product management certificate won't be the determining factor if for you to get a call or not. Maybe for the internship, but what intern will invest $5,000 in a course, right? So
Yeah.
I think that all that is taught. I think I know for a fact because I've specifically had an opportunity to inspect that particular organization, can be found in cheaper courses, even for free in the internet, just not in a like a cohesive one narration and like cause and effect way. And it you don't need an to like invest thousands of dollars to get the position. You just need to invest time. You just need to take a leap of faith and create something of your own and have the journey of success or failure. That's also okay to present, and that might just work out for your unicorn journey, but at the same time, it will also help you with your the long track journey, right? It's you will be still able to go to an internal interview and tell whoever you'll be talking to about all you've learned and how you applied it already, plus demonstrate on how you worked with the current PM as it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this emphasis on it. I mean, it's you have to prove, but there are different ways. But you have to bring proof of experience in a certain. But
Mhm.
there is but you can have that without the corporate context.
Of course, and
That would be the unicorn or
like
something like it.
my course that is what 30 20 times cheaper than the product school ones is
Yeah.
built in a way where I make sure that you understand the principles, you know how things work and what is your role as the PM, and then it all ends up with let's call it a mini course on how to you take all those things that you've learned and apply it to your mini product, so you have something to show on your resume, you have something to talk about. Well, other thing that I really don't like as a proof of experience that people put a lot of emphasis on sometimes is doing how do you call them? It's like home exercises.
Like, but when you apply them, so when you take them
No, no,
to,
no, no,
Practicum.
no, no. Like when you have like a product problem on your own and you just do it at home, like if, try to figure it out, but not as a part of the recruitment process, but for your own. And then
okay.
like a portfolio of case studies. I think it's yeah. So
Okay.
Like,
so it's
yeah,
like
Figma case studies or something,
mhm.
like people who have a
Yeah.
portfolio.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for me, it's like having a mm, job mock job interview support group. It's cool that you sit together and ask yourself questions, but you don't have the insights to correct
Yeah.
one another, right? You don't know what the people in the real job interview will want and what should be corrected.
Yeah.
Unless you have someone with experience in the room to tell you what you're doing wrong,
Yeah.
then you're basically having an AI learning from AI
Yeah.
content.
I want to emphasize this. So just you mentioned like in there your course, but like can we? I think it's a very important one. So there's a couple of courses that you provide, and one of them is really this. I mean, you take people throughout a journey of how they can apply and help them basically do a first mini project on their own, so they have something to show. Can you?
Yes.
Is that right? So can you like where can people learn more about these courses? Where should I point them to? I mean, we talked about your LinkedIn
Mhm.
profile, but where should people go? So there's
So,
LinkedIn profile, YouTube channel. Where else?
and basically www.drbartpm.com. You have everything there you need. And
Yeah.
if you have any questions, I'm pretty known to reply to every message I get on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty good at replying on LinkedIn messages, and I'm pretty poor at
How on
replying
earth
to
do you do
emails.
this? Like there's I've you mentioned this that you mentioned this on your website where you can every kind of thing every question is going to be answered if you take the course. How on earth do you do this?
People who don't reply for messages did some good work for me, and people don't expect me to reply. So the few brave people who actually reach out are always surprised to get an answer. I will admit that some of them are templates because, well, if I get the
Sure.
same question several times, I can just use the templates. But if very often it's a specific problem, and for my courses students, I also for free help them with like recruitment assignments, and those are like very bespoke and specific. And a lot of things are bespoke and specific, but they are quick to answer when you know what to say. And if the question is repeating itself 10, 20, 50 times, then there's always a handy article I've already written or a handy YouTube video that I can just show, and it doesn't require that much brain power and time to be helpful and be there for people as another human being.
Yeah.
No chat GPT involved.
Well, Bart, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a pleasure. I think we'll put all of this in the description, so we'll have links in the description, of course, that point to your website and your LinkedIn profile. Anything else that you want to send out to the PMs and then all the other guys that are listening to the Product Quest podcast?
Well, keep high spirits and remember that at the end of the day, no one dies during the deadline, right? It's just keep positive and don't let it get to you, because there's so much fun and so much good things about product management. And even if things are tough, then you still have one of the greatest jobs in the world. And as I said, remember about the user, remember about those thousands, millions of people you're touching every day. And even if there's a grumpy developer in the room or management becomes absurdly chaotic and you don't know what's going on, there's at least one little kid that takes your product and is like, yeah, thank you. Do it for this kid.
That's a
Awesome.
perfect place to end this. So thank you very much, Bart. And that concludes today's Product Quest podcast. So please send any comments or ideas for future shows to productquestpodcast@gmail.com and see you next time.